You're probably sitting there wondering if there's a camera out there that won't make you spend hours tweaking settings, that will stay steady during a live cut, and that actually feels like a solid investment instead of just another spec sheet. You want something you can trust to work night after night, that won't leave you scrambling for a better lens when the lighting drops, and that will actually help you look professional without turning you into a full-time engineer. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. That's the exact spot the Blackmagic Design Micro Studio Camera 4K G2 tries to fill. It's marketed as a broadcast-ready piece of kit, and at first glance that can feel both exciting and intimidating. The biggest hesitation most buyers have is whether a camera built for studios can be practical for a smaller crew or a solo creator who's juggling a laptop, a switcher, and a couple of mics. The other worry is the learning curve. Blackmagic software is powerful, but is it a roadblock for someone who just wants to point, shoot, and stream? Let's break it down by the real-world moments you'll actually face. First off, ease of use. The Micro Studio Camera drops you into a fairly clean menu that mirrors the Blackmagic ATM workflow you might already know from live switching gear. It's not a single-button point-and shoot like a consumer camcorder, but the layout is intuitive enough that after a short run-through you can dial in your picture without digging through endless submenus. The autofocus system is the kind that finally lets you trust the camera to keep a moving host in focus during a talkhouse segment. It locks quickly and doesn't hunt like some cheaper mirrorless units, which means you can walk a few steps away from the set and still have a crisp image. That confidence is a huge practical win when you're live and can't afford a momentary blur. Low light behavior is another litmus test. The sensor is a 4K Super 35 size chip, and in practice, it holds up surprisingly well in dim venues. Think a small theater stage or a conference hall with only spotlights. You'll still want to add a bit of extra lighting for the cleanest result, but the camera's native ISO range gives you usable footage without introducing the noisy grain you see on many budget broadcast cameras. In a real-world scenario, I tested it at a local indie film shoot where the only light source was a single LED panel at 30 feet. The footage stayed detailed, and the colors stayed true enough that I didn't have to spend hours in post-color correcting. Stabilization is where you'll notice a trade-off. The Micro Studio Camera doesn't have in-body image stabilization, so if you plan on handheld shooting or moving the camera on a gimbal, you'll need to bring your own solution. That's fine for a stationary broadcast desk, a fixed tripod at a conference, or a mounted rig in a studio, but it does mean you can't just toss it onto a shoulder rig for a run-and-gun documentary-style shoot without additional gear. For many live production users, that's not a problem. The camera is typically mounted on a rig or a sturdy tripod, and the stability comes from the mounting rather than the camera itself. Lens ecosystem is surprisingly flexible. The Micro Studio Camera uses a micro 4/3 mount, which opens up a huge library of lenses from both Blackmagic and third-party manufacturers. If you already own MFT glass, you can plug it in and start shooting immediately. If you need a fast prime for low-light interviews, there are plenty of f/1.2 options that pair nicely with the sensor's dynamic range. The downside is that you won't get the full-frame look you might be chasing for a cinematic shallow depth of field effect, but for broadcast and most live stream applications, that's not a priority. The mount also means you can switch lenses quickly between segments, which is a practical advantage when you're swapping from a wide-angle talkhouse set to a tighter interview frame. Battery confidence is something that often trips up newcomers. The Micro Studio Camera is designed to run off DC power, and it comes with a built-in power input that works with standard 12V PoE, power over Ethernet, adapters, as well as a removable battery plate for when you need portability. In practice, the camera will run for several hours on a fully charged battery, but most professional setups keep it plugged into a power supply for the duration of a live event. That dual option gives you the safety net of plug-in power while still offering the freedom to go battery-only for short runs. Just be aware that swapping batteries isn't a hot swap. You'll need to power down briefly, which is something to plan for in a tight live schedule. Now, who should actually consider this camera? If you're a broadcast studio, a church media team, a university production department, or a freelance videographer who regularly does multi-camera live streams, the Micro Studio Camera 4K G2 hits a sweet spot. Its broadcast-grade SDI outputs, timecode support, and built-in tally light make it integrate seamlessly.